Hi, and welcome to another episode of Starship Gaming. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell if you want notifications of when we make more awesome videos. Now, today I am going to tell you a story about the time that I met what he was known as the Master of Games. So, back in 2000, I was really into video games, and, well, my parents knew somebody to babysit me while they went to work, and this person happened to be locally known as a master of video games, and he was mostly locally known by the youth. He was this mid-20-something-year-old in 2000 who not only mastered all the video games in our local arcade, which was known as Power Play, that was the name of the arcade, but he also mastered a lot of different console games up to that point. So he ends up being my babysitter for a series of about roughly 4 months. Because of conflicts with my parents' schedule, they had to work, and the first time I ever met him, he comes up and he's like, "Hey kid, you want to see me beat the Lion King on Super Nintendo?" And I swear, he beat that entire game in like 20 minutes or something. It had to have been at least 20 minutes. And he truly lived up to his name. His name was John, if I remember correctly. I haven't seen this person in 20 years. He was pretty much the Fonz of video games. And he would be like, well, where we live, there used to be a video rental shop not too far away, and they still, as of 2000, at that time, they still rented out Super Nintendo games. So he would like rent new games every time he came over. Like, he was babysitting me like 3 to 5 times a week back when I was growing up, when I was a kid. And he would let me play, and he would show me like tips on how to beat certain levels and all that. And I think I can credit him with getting me really into video games. Like, I remember one evening in like the winter of 2000, when we sat down and he like showed me how to beat like Toy Story. He rented it and like he beat that whole game probably like 20-30 minutes. It really amazed me how fast that he was with these games. Like, of course you have speedrunners now, and that's, it's not as impressive as it was in 2000, but it was still pretty impressive back then. But I think the most interesting time was when he took me to see, he's basically like a big brother to me. He was back then. He took me to see How the Grinch Stole Christmas back in 2000, November 2000. And then we went to the local Power Play arcade, like right after that. And he proceeded to like beat every single person who challenged him in Street Fighter 2, I believe. And then he went down the line and he was like playing all these games and everything, and it was really awesome. Like, that's one memory that I have. That's one thing I have a really strong memory of is him. Specifically, I remember the Super Nintendo. He always carried it around, and what ended up happening is he left to move out of state, and that was like right after that, and that's when I ended up being babysat by some old woman that was like really grouchy. And she was like, here, bring me my peppermints. And I'd be like, do you have any games? What's a game? I got Parcheesi. No, not Parcheesi. But anyway, eventually, he moved on. He got a new job in another state, like 5 or 6 states away. And that was the last I ever saw of him. But I do credit him to this day for getting me into video games as a whole, especially Super Nintendo. every time I play my Super Nintendo, or I even look at one, I think of him because that was like the system that, he mostly played. And to me, he truly was the master of video games. And I think growing up, a lot of us had that brother or sister figure that we looked up to, that encouraged us to be the best that we can be. And he was one of those people who encouraged me to basically get into the whole video game thing and all that. And, he was basically like even though I only knew him for a couple months, he was basically like a brother. He was very well locally known. I don't know how well known he is now. I know kids of my generation knew him a little bit, but he was mostly known by the crowd in the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s. He actually did some professional gaming stuff on a local level. Not a whole lot, because there wasn't really a whole lot of professional gaming stuff back then, but he did a little bit up until 93 or 94 before he, retired. But, I just thought this would be an interesting story to share. And if you'd like to hear more of my personal experiences or stories, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll think of, some other interesting video game stories or, stuff that I've encountered over the years. So, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell if you want notifications of when we release more awesome videos. And until next time, I will see ya.